Have you ever been in a position where you need the acceptance from someone else, or you needed compliance from somebody? Like you needed to sell your message in a way where the other person, whoever's receiving it, will comply, will pay, or will buy the message that you have? Well, in this video, I'm actually going to share with just the general population the absolute most important skill to learn if you've ever been in that position.
Walk talking like a boss, I just lift a hand. 3 million cash, call me Rain Man. Money like a shower.
Kind of like a job interview, right? Like you're really hoping to land this job. You're really hoping to, really impress this other person. It could be a date. And as a side bonus, I'm gonna tell you how to sell an interview. I've interviewed thousands of people amongst my career for well over 15 years now as a manager, and it was actually up to me to make the decision on hiring. And so I have a pretty good amount of experience in hiring people. So if any of you have been in the position or are in position right now where you might be looking for a job, or you might be interviewing for a job, and you want to know how to better prepare yourself, stick around because I'm gonna give you the answer in this video. But with regards to the ultimate message, and you don't even need to do it for a professional reason, meaning you don't need to be necessarily selling a message for compensation as if that's your job title. I believe that in general, we all have a time in our life where we need to communicate a message and gain compliance. And the importance of gaining the compliance from that other person or the recipient of your message is huge, right? Like whether you're, again, I can give examples for days, but I think you get the point. And so the message here in this video is I'm going to share with you how to persuade basically like the general public on how to get your way on something. And really what it comes down to, if you really think about it, the whole point of it being such a challenge or it being hard is because the way we preset our minds. So we may be presetting our minds in a way where we believe that the other person does not want the message or does not want to comply with the message. And so, fix this camera right quick. And so we may go into a scenario, like, I don't know if you ever remember this when you were young and you had to, maybe ask your parents for the car, or ask your parents or an elder or someone, and I'm referring back to your past because you're in a position where you genuinely needed permission, right? So I reference a lot of times when you're a kid, because when you're a kid you need permission. When you're an adult, not so much, right? But where you're in a position where you're overthinking the situation because you believe that the other person is going to not comply. Well, my message to you is that next time you feel this way, go into it with an understanding and thinking about, well, what would be the upside if they did comply, right? Because I think that we sometimes go into scenarios, including salesmen. You know what I mean? Just not the general public, but including salesmen. One of the hardest challenges that we face is going into a situation where we're actually our own anchor. We're stopping ourselves from getting compliance. And the reason for that is because you are thinking in a way where your message is pre-wired in a way to where it's in defense. You may not know this, but subconsciously your message, your tone, your body language represents anxiety or represents desperation. And so if you go into it without thinking of two things, number one is the upside of the recipient. What is in it for them? Like, how are they going to gain value, right? And then number two is you have to cross out and cancel out any objections. And so if you're asking this specific question and the whole reason why you don't think that they'll comply, there's got to be a reason. Well, that reason is their objection. And so you might go into it thinking, and I'm in sales, right? So commonly we go into, salesmen will make the mistake of going into it just worried about price, thinking about their competitor who has it cheaper, or thinking about the competitor who has a better reputation, or thinking about their competitor who is a much larger recognized company. And so the salesman will actually go in with their confidence tainted, if not fully diminished. And so they'll go into the meeting or go into the conversation where their tonality is desperate. Like, oh man, you really want to work? There's something about their tonality where it's like they're worried. And so And so I want you to think back when someone communicated with you in desperation. I want you to think back when someone communicated to you with a hint of just fear, right? Fear that you're going to say no, or you could sense that they're uncomfortable asking you. And I want you to recognize how it made you feel. How it made you feel where you were just like, oh man, that was awkward. You know, did you comply? Did you say yes? Now think to another time where you were dealing with someone confident, like someone who was driving the conversation. What happens? Like you're typically being driven in the conversation by an expert or a professional. And so like think back maybe if you've dealt with a contractor or maybe authority like a policeman or a sheriff or maybe someone in the military, right? Like there's a driving tone where they're in charge and they're actually driving you, so it's less thinking on the recipient. So it's much easier for the recipient to comply because they're given direction. They're actually given orders. And I'm not saying you got to go around like a tyrant, like you got to, you know what I mean? Like, you need to do this. It's not like that, bro. You have to communicate in a way where you're still professional. You're still, how can I put it? You're still sensitive and empathetic to the emotions of the person receiving your message. And that's the whole point of actually even generating a message to begin with, at least in my opinion, I believe, right? Because not too many people go about, and people do, right? There's some people who go about where they're just genuinely out for the other person, but in all reality, they do it for themselves, truth be told, right? They do it for themselves because it feels good for themselves. It feels good, it feels right, but still, nonetheless, it's for themselves. So if they can go around being the absolute nicest person, Mother Teresa, right? But at the end of the day, they're doing it for themselves, for protection and an investment in their future. Whether they think it's, you know, their way through the holy gates, or they think it's their way to be, you know, accepted, or they think it's their way to maybe justify the wrongdoings that they've done in the past. At the end of the day, that person is still doing it for themselves. And so I want you to be like that today. I want you to recognize the things that you want in your life and understand that as long as you know how to communicate the message, you can get that thing. You can get that thing as long as you do those two things with regards to your next message. Back up, stop before you go into that conversation or before you manufacture the words in that message. I want you to think of those two things. Again, those two things is number one, is you got to think about the upside of the recipient. What is the other person going to gain? What value are they going to experience? And I want you to really think about that. Like, not just like, oh, well, you're going to have a good day. No, it has to go deeper. It has to be something that almost like a domino effect. Like, well, if you allow this, then this, and this will happen. And so what you're doing is you're just linking the benefits, and you want to come up with at least two or three, because when you explain the upside, it has to be like a chain event, right? And if you consider the upside and then also consider the objections, and again, how do you consider objections? Well, the reason why you think they're not going to accept your message, that is the objection. And so if you think like, oh man, they're going to accept this message because they don't like the price. Well, that's the objection. So think about an answer to that objection. And how you overcome an objection is that you basically come up with the upside. So that was the first step. You come up with the upside, you already got an answer to the objection, but you have to format it in a way where it makes it easy for them to understand. Don't use fancy words. If anything, use words that person is using. Right? So if they explain things in a specific word like terrific or awesome or horrible, you want to use these particular power words in order to convey your message. And I am confident that is how you're going to be able to get your way with any message that you have today. So try it out and let me know what you think. Please, if this is your first time watching Sales Remastered, consider subscribing, sharing, liking, and commenting on the videos that you enjoy most. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.